Well, good morning, and it's time for another walk. And by this time, this is a walk with a difference. Got a different hat on to start with. Not got my walking pole, and I'm wearing jeans and not walking gear, but I'm still out on a walk. So today I am revisiting my past. It's something I like to do every now and again. I don't live in the past, but I have a number of walks which kind of explore the areas that I used to haunt when I was a kid. And today is one of those. So I hope you're going to join me, because it will be interesting and it'll be a good walk. Weather's not spectacular, it's quite cloudy today, but that's okay for this kind of walk. That's perfect. So if you've been following me, you may know that I was born in East Dorset 76 years ago in a couple of weeks' time. Coming up to my 76th birthday now. And I was born at a place called Parkstone, which is a suburb of Poole, now all part of the BCP, Bournemouth, Christchurch, Poole Unitary Authority area. So I'm starting my walk today at a place called Constey. It's actually Constitution Hill, but we used to call it Constey when I was a kid. And these woods that I'm just walking through at the moment are part of my old haunts, which my mates and I used to come and spend a lot of time around. So yeah, Constitution Hill. So we're starting there, and we're going to do a circuit around basically my past. So it should be good. So Constitution Hill is actually in an area known as Sea View, which is part of the Poole, Bournemouth area, and it's just near Parkstone. Called Sea View for obvious reasons, as you'll have seen at the beginning of this film. It's got sea views. Anyway, let's get walking, and I will tell you more about it as we go. So yes, the woods at Constey is where we used to come as kids, and we spend a lot of time here. And they're not huge, but you can have some fun. So I thought I'd come down into the woods and just see what they look like. And now we're going to climb back up to the top where we started this film. And it's, like I said, Constitution Hill, Constey, a viewpoint. Back in the day, it was a viewpoint of courting couples. I think it probably has to be said. They used to come here and park their car and sit and do what courting couples do. So we're back up the top now, and what you can see here is the whole of Poole and Poole Harbour, Brownsea Island, and beyond that the Purbecks. In fact, you can see Old Harry Rocks over in the distance. I don't know if that'll come out on here or not, but it's a great view. It might be towny, but it's a great view. So one thing that used to be at Constey that we used to have some fun with is in here. There used to be a water tower in here. It still is some kind of, I think it's an underground reservoir now, but it used to be above ground water tower, and I remember we used to climb up into that. It was probably as high as a house, and we used to scramble up the wall and climb into it. It was kind of disused. I seem to remember it was empty, actually there was no water in it, but this is where it used to be, in here. And I remember once we brought a rope to make it easier to get up into it, and one of my friends asked a passing guy, said, would you mind trying to throw this rope up here for us? And he threw the whole rope up. He didn't keep hold of the end, he just threw the whole lot up. It then went over the top of the wall and down into the water. So he's no help to us whatsoever. So this is the approach road, and this is the end of the woods. I suppose it'd be kind of a half moon shape, I suppose you would call it, narrowing it each side. So this road is just the one that goes around the viewpoint, but we're going to head around on a tour of Parkstone. And this, where we're heading into now, this is all sea view. It's quite a busy area, but a lot of traffic comes along around sea view and on through Parkstone. It can get a bit clogged up and it'll probably be a bit noisy, but hopefully you'll be able to hear what I'm saying, and hopefully it will be interesting. And it's an area that's changed a lot, because across the way there, that used to be a pub, the Seaview Hotel, which they pulled down a few years ago and built those flats and I think a shop. So it's a changing area and it's noisy. And this is an interesting part of my past. Across the road there used to be Seaview Tyres, which is where I used to get my tyres for the car when I was teenage. Seem to remember that used to be an antique shop. There's now hair, nails and beauty shop. All change. But this road actually looks very similar to how it did back then. So over the road there, I think it's probably the one with the gallery, I'm not sure, used to be my doctor's, or the one next door, I'm not sure. One of those two was where my doctor's surgery was, and there were two doctors in there, Dr. Buchan and Dr. Clements. We used to prefer to see Dr. Clements, and the reason was that Dr. Buchan had a speech impediment and you couldn't really understand what he was saying. But of course it goes back to the days when there was no appointment system, so you just went and waited until somebody came out and said, next please, and it was your turn. And here on the right used to be my dentist back then. And across the way there is where I got my first job as a early teens, I think. Used to be three shops in a row there. One is still there. In the middle was a newsagent called Cook's Newsagents. Gone now, of course. They've built new, demolished it and built new, but that's where I got my first paper round. Started off with an evening paper round, which is all you could do when you were young. I think you had to be a certain age to do a morning round, but I switched to a morning round later on. So that's where I earned my first pennies. And some things never change, of course. This has been, well, it was funeral director come headstone maker ever since I can remember. And on the corner of this road is what's always been a garage, as far as I remember. Used to be Whiffins back in my day when I was a kid. I used to get sent up here to buy half a gallon of paraffin for the paraffin heater. And across the road, Parkstone Trades and Labour Club now, but it used to be Woodlands Hall in my day. And I remember the day that went up in flames. I don't know how old I was. Pre-teen, I would say, probably younger than teenage. And I remember leaning out of the bedroom window from my house at night and seeing the flames going up from that building. There were huge flames and it was completely gutted. And on this corner we used to have a fruit shop, I remember. This is now a pet shop or pet place, veterinary place. But my memory, I've not done much bad in my day, I have to say. Generally I've tried to live a good life. But I do remember scrumping some plums from outside the shop when we were kids. I was with some of my mates who perhaps weren't quite so good as me, not quite well behaved or whatever, and encouraged by them, I think we all scrumped handfuls of plums, and the greengrocer saw us and he chased us all down this road, which is my road incidentally. He chased us all down this road. He didn't catch us, we were too quick for him, but sadly we lost most of the plums. We dropped them as we ran. One of my abiding memories. And there used to be a taxi service in here, Bailey's Taxis. I think that was over there, I think, in the sheds behind. So yes, this is my road. This is Granville Road in Parkstone, and I was born here and I lived here for the first 24 years of my life till I got married, and all my mates were here. It's got a bit busier now, but this used to be our go-kart run. We always had go-karts when we were kids, and we used to start from here and fly down this hill. It may not look very steep in the video, but it was steep when you were a kid on a go-kart with no brakes. Far less cars around then, of course. So yeah, all my mates lived here. All been extended now. I remember the Mullet twins used to live there. There were another pair of twins living in this house. Can't remember what their names were. But all the houses have been extended. It's changed. When I lived here, These were council houses, so we lived in a council house. We weren't rich, we were quite a poor family. But we were happy. So I don't want to point the camera too much at houses, but this one on the left is where I was born and lived for 24 years. This one, 36 Granville Road, with a huge long garden, and that was a council house. Still looks the same, house looks the same. Even the front wall looks, that's the same front wall. These are the same front walls that were there when I was a child. So this is not only a road, it was my football field, because I constantly playing football out here in the road, either on my own or with my mates. It was a rounders field, a cricket pitch. We just did everything out here. We were always out in the road playing, but of course you couldn't do it now, sadly. But I'd love to look around the house now, there, see what it's like. It's funny standing here looking back. Take the cars out of this, and generally from here it would look fairly much as it did when I lived here. This is my house, that one over there with a lamppost outside. And there used to be quite a few kind of informal arrangements in those days, I think. I remember the house here, we used to go through their garden because it leads out. They've got at the time they built houses now at the back, but they used to be, before that house was built, behind there you could go right through this garden and out the other side into the next road, and I used to go to school through their garden. It was just an accepted thing. Nobody complained, they didn't mind. Don't think you do it these days, I don't know. One of my aunties and uncles lived in there. I had another friend lived in there. That was the Gillett family, Barry Gillett. So I'd just been chatting to a guy who lives in one of the houses there, who was wondering why I was filming. Nice guy though, he was good, looking out for his neighbours. So who else lived here? The Olds lived in that house there. That we used to call her Auntie Betty. She was good to us when we were kids. We used to go and see her and spend time in her house. And this house in the corner wasn't there. My dad used to park his lorry there where that house is. It was just a plain bit of land that he used to park his lorry on, but they built a house on it. And this here was often our goal against that wall. We used to play football against that wall. Must have driven the people mad, I should think, with the ball thumping against their wall all the time. So a last look down Granville Road. Right, let's head off down this way. This is Fielden Road. Now what I'm doing, I'm actually retracing a walk which we did twice a week from my house in Granville Road to my grand's house, my grandparents' house in Beresford Road. And this is the way we used to walk. And this is new as well, or new to over the last 50 years anyway. This was all open. I think it was either a market garden or orchard or something in there. I think that's what it was, or it was allotments, or maybe it was a market garden that became allotments. But anyway, it's been built on now. This is another much changed place, because that used to be cobblers in there. Remember, that side window was a door. Get your shoes repaired. And down here there were two corner shops. So that was a corner shop, and that was a corner shop over there as well. And I used to come down here often to buy, well, I think it was more of a sweet shop. That was more of a grocer's, small little grocer's shop. So I used to get sent down here to buy various things like tea or sugar or whatever. And not only that, but I remember my mum sending me down to buy her 5 woodbines as well. And this is when I was, I don't know if I was even teenage. She didn't smoke very much, but just occasionally she would, so she'd send me down to buy 5 woodbines. So yes, so I lived in a property in Granville Road from 1948 through to 1973 when I got married, and there were 7 of us there when I was a child, my parents and us 5 boys, because I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and it's a 3-bedroom house. So my parents had 1, us 2 younger boys, post-war babies, had 1, and my 3 older pre-war babies had the other 3 of them in 1 room. That used to be a shop there as well, by the way. So yeah, seven of us, my parents and 5 boys plus a dog who was called Trixie, who I used to tease mercilessly, I seem to remember, when I was a child, and then jump up on a chair so it couldn't reach me. Yes, down here there is a feature that I used to absolutely love, and that was this little narrow lane. I remember I used to like to walk down that to the next road. My mum would bring me down to see my grandparents, but I liked to go down that lane, so she'd walk down here, I'd go through the lane, and I'd meet her at the other end. It's funny, some paths are like that. Some paths are inviting and you just want to walk down them. And I still feel that now when I'm out walking, that there are paths that you think, oh, that looks so inviting, I just want to walk down that path, I don't care where it goes. And that was one of those that affected me that way as a kid. And here's more shops. I remember you used to be able to go down there, and there were 2 shops down there. It's a house now, but I remember one was a beer shop, I think, alcohol shop, and that used to be open. Then you just go down the lane and into the shop. I remember Oh, and down there I remember there was a place that sold logs. I don't know what it was exactly, but I remember being sent there by my gran with a pram, which I used to ask them to fill up with logs for a shilling or something. It was some kind of timber yard, but I don't know exactly what. I don't remember that. I just remember going there with a pram and them filling it up and me giving them a shilling or something. Cheap in those days. Tell you what, Parkstone's got noisier since I was here last. So on the corner of this road, Victoria Crescent, used to be a fish and chip shop. Door used to be there at the angle. Remember, we used to get fish and chips here and take them down to my gran and granddad. So this is the way we used to walk when I was, well, anything up to, don't know, teenage, up to 15 probably. I'm trying to think. My grandparents, I think, well, my gran was the last one to go, and I think she died when I was 15 or 16. But this is the way we used to walk. It brings back memories, honey, innit? You look back, you kind of almost remember it like it was yesterday, really. But then we did come twice a week or something. Tuesday afternoons and Saturdays, I think. And I remember that over there used to be a concrete works. I can't remember what they were called now. Don't remember. I remember they had the crushing wheels and that, which I used to watch. Oh, and here on the right there used to be an old tin hut that was used as a 7-Up, some kind of 7-Up depot, the drink 7-Up. And that house on the corner over there used to be where my gran and granddad lived. Vastly changed, I have to say. It's way bigger than it was then. It's been extended all around. It's got a small old rented cottage when they lived there. That is Beresford Road. And there used to be a school at the top. In fact, that's actually been split. I see 35 is actually the middle cottage. So the right hand, or middle house I should say, the right hand house has been built on what would have been my gran's garden. So you wouldn't even recognise it now compared to what it was in when they lived there all those years ago. Typically, as you can see from the angle of the door on the corner of this house, that also used to be a corner shop right opposite my gran's. So we'll retrace our steps a slightly different way on the way back. Heavenly Bottom, or Burgess Field, Gypsy encampment, and also the site of Parkstone Cemetery, which is actually where my grandparents are buried. Interesting to see if I can find their grave, but there's a lot of them, and to be honest I don't remember at all where it was. In fact, this is actually called Parkstone Cemetery. I'm not quite sure why, because it's in Parkstone, but there is a different Parkstone Cemetery. Well, needle in a haystack it might have been, but I managed to find the needle. That's my gran and granddad's grave. Arthur and Lillian George. That's how I knew them. My gran was previously married, was a Dolman, of course, which I've talked about before in my videos. She was Lillian Dolman originally, and my mum's a Dolman, so I'm Dolman descent. But he was killed in the First World War, and my gran remarried Arthur George. So he was my step-granddad, but he's the one I knew. I never met my first granddad, he died way before I was born. Interesting to find their grave, though. So I come from a big family, actually, because both my grandparents had lots of kids. On this side there were 13, I think 13 children, and on the other side, the Yarrow side, the grandparents I never knew because they died before I was born, I think they also had 13 kids. So I had lots of aunties and uncles when I was growing up, and most of them I think we probably saw at Christmas time, if at all. There were some we saw regularly, but a lot of them we didn't see all that often. And opposite the cemetery is another blast from my past. It's a park now, but all this ground used to be Turner's nursery, and I quite often got sent down to Turner's nursery to buy a lettuce, and old man Turner would get his knife out and cut one for me from the field, which I'd then take home. And old man Turner, who ran Turner's nursery, was a well-known, extremely well-known local character. He used to ride around Parkstone on his motorbike and sidecar, always wearing kind of t-shirt and shorts, regardless of the weather, even in midwinter. So he was well known. And he used to have his nurseries on this, oh, in fact it calls it, look, Turner's Nursery, which has since been turned into a park. And this used to be my way to school when I was at the senior school. I used to cycle up this hill on my way Kent Welsh School in Herbert Avenue, which is my secondary school that I went to. In fact, we'll see two of my schools today on this walk, but all this ground on the left used to be Turner's Nurseries. He not only had a nursery there, which was quite a lot of acres, he also had some barns, I remember. And he had, I seem to remember, he had a steam engine stored in one of them, and he had vintage cars as well stored in his barn as well. So although he always went round in the same t-shirt and shorts, quite scruffy, he actually had quite a lot of money, I think. But there's another big fire as well, I remember, In fact, I got photographs of it somewhere. That was when all his barns went up in flames once and destroyed all his, well, I presume the cars and the steam engine were still there, I can't remember. But anyway, the flames on that were enormous. And I think I took some photographs of that event as well. And here's yet more memories from me. And this used to be, the house on the corner here, used to be gardeners, coal merchants. They're actually still there, would you believe, but not in the house. I guess the house has been sold, but I see gardeners still exists. Actually, it's gardeners cash and carry, it says there. But it used to be coal merchants, and I used to get sent down here by my parents when we ran out of coal or logs and it was cold winter and they wanted something for the fire. I used to get sent down here to pick up some briquettes. It's basically coal dust. Probably at the time we probably couldn't afford coal, but you could come down and buy briquettes, which is essentially coal dust, which is kind of squeezed together to make like a block of coal, albeit it's just dust. And that used to be the shop where I used to go to pick those up, and I used to come down on my go-kart because obviously I couldn't carry it home from here, so I just used to come down, bring the go-kart with me, put some briquettes on the back of it and pull it back home again. I seem to get sent doing a lot of things, didn't I, when I was young? So up here was my first school. Sylvan Road Primary School. And I started school when I was 5, I guess. So will that be 1953 I came here. Still the same. I remember the hall. It's got a circular hall. Can't see it very well, it's overgrown, and it's, I don't want to point the camera at the school too long. But that's where I started my school life. And headmistress was a Miss Scott, I remember that. And she became an author. I've got a book written by her. I've forgotten what it's called. Don't think I've read it yet actually, but it's on my reading pile. So that'll be interesting to see what she was like as an author. But she was very nice, Miss Scott. I remember her. And also remember when I was at that school I had to have a spoonful of, oh, what do you call it? I don't know whether I was emaciated or something. Is that the right word? Can't remember. Oh, what was it they used to give me? I used to have a couple of spoonfuls every day. I think there were 2 or 3 of us in the school that had to have it. I don't actually remember what that was about. It's like molasses. No, I don't know if it was molasses. It'll come to me and I'll put a note above. But this is more memories here, because later on when I was a teenage I bought a dog. I had a puppy, and I used to bring him walking up here, up these lanes, because you're off the road. So this was our stamping ground in the evening. I used to do a little circuit which took in these lanes, and I took him for a walk. Rex his name was. But when I got married in 1973, it was a bit long in the tooth to start taking him away and to a new house, especially as obviously we both worked then. So my parents kept him at home. And you can see part of the school down there at the bottom. And this lane brings us out to Cranbrook Road, right opposite what used to be my church. So that was my church in the day. It was actually two-tier. So the church itself was upstairs. In fact, the French doors there were the entrance, and you can see a dark line where the walkway used to go across to that from the top road. And down below there were two doors where the windows are, and that was where the Sunday school was. So you can see that's a church. Obviously it's been converted now to housing, but that's where the walkway went in. Used to be gates here, and I went to that church. Well, I was sent there as a child to Sunday school till I was early teens. I think I stopped going, and then later on, when I made a commitment and became a Christian as an adult, late teens or early 20s it would be, I came back to this church, and I went here for a few years before I moved on to a different church in Parkstone. So part of my past, big part of my past I have to say. I used to lead the services in there when I became a Christian and started going back for a second time. But the pastor died, Pastor Best died, no one replaced him, and so the building was sold. And as you can see, it's now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 residences, houses I guess. But yeah, interesting to see that still looks very much the way it did when I went there. Little detour down here, not going this way, but this is another lane that I used to walk through a lot when I was a kid. And it takes us almost full circle. Because so down there, about halfway down, is the end of Granville Road, with a house on the corner which I used as a goal when we used to play football. So this is where we walked down earlier, but we're not going to go that way. I just wanted to come through this lane because it was very much a part of my growing up, coming up this lane. Of course, we used to come up here when we went to church, both as a child and as an adult. So we're now coming into Croft Road, which is where my second school was. So we've seen Sylvan Road was my primary school. Branksome Heath was my junior school, it used to be in those days, before I went to Kent Welsh, which was my senior school. And we don't pass that one because it's a bit too far away. In fact, we won't actually pass this one because it's not there anymore. So here's another part of my history, although it predates me slightly. And that is that before we moved to Granville Road, my parents lived in one of these houses here, but it got too small, so they moved to Granville Road. Got a council house in Granville Road, but it predates me. But this on the left was my school, Branksome Heath, but it's been pulled down and that's been built in its place. But this is where I used to walk to go to school. So it's now Parkstone Connect, but that used to be Branksome Heath junior school, and I think this looks like part of the original wall. Obviously demolished some, because I'm sure it used to be 6 foot high, but that looks very much like the same wall that was there when I went to school here. And we're coming out towards Seaview again now, and it's going to get noisy again as we're coming out onto a busy main road again. But on the left here there was a shop. It's probably where the laundry is now, I think. It used to be a grocery shop back in the day when I used to go to school here, and it was a shop that my mum had. She had a slate or something there, I seem to recall, because often she would ask me to pop into what she called her shop. She always called it my shop, and pick up whatever, and they just put it on the slate. And I guess that's because they used to live just around the corner from it, so she'd obviously been going there for quite a few years before I was born. The other thing I remember about that shop is we used to go in there on the way to school and buy a pomegranate, and we used to have a pin in our lapel of our school jacket, and we used to pick the pips out of it, or the seeds, and eat those as we walked to school. Here's another part of my past on the left, which is another shop. House now, of course, but that used to be Head's Bakery. So it's become a house now, of course, but the door used to be where the window is, on the angled corner, and the bakery itself was at the back. And I used to do a bakery round there on a Saturday while I was at school. On the van, we used to go out in the van delivering bread around Parkstone, and I think I used to earn 15 shillings or something. What's that, 75 pence a week or something? And I used to go out with a guy called John Head, who was the son of the owner. Good thing was he used to come down Granville Road delivering bread, so I didn't actually have to come up here. He used to pick me up on the way through. And then very kindly, he often used to let me go early, because I used to go and watch AFC Bournemouth play when they were at home. And so he used to let me go early so that I could go and watch football. He was really good to me, I have to say. So we're nearly back at the start now. So I said we were a poor family. We were never well off. My dad was worked for a builder, but one of the things I do remember is that he used to smoke a bit, and he told me probably 1,000 times, I think, that when I came along and was born, he had to give up smoking because he couldn't afford both. It was either me or the cigarettes, so the cigarettes went, so that they could afford another mouth to feed. It's one of those tales that goes around year on year. But yes, it's got so much noisier around this area. I hope it's not affected the sound too much as I've been talking. I hope it's been interesting. It's very much part of my youth, and it was a happy youth, I have to say. I had a happy childhood. So I've come back into my woods for a little wander around my half moon Consti. And it's a good place to sign the video off, I think, because it's the end of the walk now. And it's been a good one. I've enjoyed it. It's got so much noisier than it used to be, I have to say, and busier. But yeah, it's been a really enjoyable walk. Only a few miles. But yeah, revisiting my past. Nice chatting to the guy in Granville Road who asked me why I was filming. Obviously just looking out for the neighbourhood. Probably thought I was casing the joints or something. But it's nice chatting to him about how it is now there. A lot of HMOs apparently now in Granville Road, whereas it used to be all family homes. So obviously it's changed quite a bit from when I was there. Loads more cars, no cars in the road really when I was a child. And I remember the hurdy-gurdy man coming down, winding his handle and playing a tune. We used to love to go out and listen to him. I remember the Corona lorry coming down. I remember the rag and bone man coming down, calling out for rag and bone, metal and scrap, anything like that. I remember the milkman, of course, the old milk float, electric milk float coming down. We used to kind of offer to help, I seem to remember, going down our road and put some of his milk out for him, and he'd give us a free, was about a third of a pint, I think they were, of orange juice or some orange drink he used to give us for free. So we used to like to help just so we could get a drink of orange. And that was good. Yeah, oh, what else? Yes, the peelings man, the pig man, I remember coming down as well. He used to come down and he used to collect all our peelings, like the green bin, I suppose, or not green bin. There's some places have a food bin, don't they? So I guess it was like that. All the peelings and that he'd take and they'd turn it into pig food. He used to come down with a little lorry, I seem to remember. So yeah, lots of happy memories. Yeah, so it's good. It's lovely to revisit it again, and I hope you've enjoyed coming with me. Not my usual walk that I would film, but I thought I'd do something a little bit different and show you a little bit of my past. And yeah, like I say, it was a happy childhood and a happy past. I don't remember anything negative about it. The neighbours were all great. We got on with everybody. A number of times I knocked on a neighbour's door and said, sorry, could I come and get my ball, because it had gone over the wall into their garden. Most of them were absolutely brilliant. Used to say, yeah, sure, you know, help yourself. We had the odd one who would say, if it comes over again, I'll stick a knife in it. But it was very rare. Most of the neighbours are really good. And yeah, I often used to go knocking on doors asking for pram wheels, because we were always making go-karts. Couldn't afford to buy anything, so we just made our own wood and got pram wheels. So I often used to go down the neighbours asking if they had any pram wheels I could have to make a go-kart with, and we had a lot of fun with those. Yeah, all happy memories. So anyway, I'm gonna sign the video off now. I could waffle on for hours reminiscing about the past, but I kind of think it would get boring for anyone who didn't know me or know the area. In fact, boring for anybody, pretty much. But it's nice to reminisce and nice to revisit the past. So anyway, thanks for coming with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved it, of course, as always. But I'm going to sign off now and say that for now, this is me, the Dorset Rambler, saying until next time. And next time, it'll be back to normal. In fact, next time it might even be in the Lake District. I don't know yet. Till next time.